9, 8.
You're watching
7,
Experience Comic Culture and
6,
Sales.
5,
Streaming live daily
4,
to Facebook, YouTube,
3,
Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We are going to have a good show today. We are going to talk about the latest news. Some stuff just broke. We are going to talk about Agatha. Triple B's already talking about it in chat, so we are definitely going to talk about the last two episodes. We didn't get a chance to talk that much about Agatha last week. We are going to talk about the Penguin, and I'm going to give my thoughts on All-Star Superman, because everybody is using it as inspiration for doing Superman stories. And you look at every top 10 list and it's like number 1 or number 2. And I got thoughts on it. I do. I have thoughts on it. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We have got a great show lined up. Hey to Triple B, who's already in chat. We got JD on the board, and we're going to jump right into the news because I want to talk about a lot of stuff today. And I keep listening. Haven't heard my mom fall. By the way, everybody who was here last time that I had to exit stage left quickly, my mom was going to the doctor appointment, tripped up on the stairs and didn't hurt herself, but she's older. Like me, she's a big gal and wasn't able to really get back up. So I had to help her up. I will not describe what that involves, but it is sadly more humorous than it should be. But she is doing all right. She's getting around, and she's 83 years old. This kind of thing happens. So I appreciate everybody who asked after her. And again, I'm listening just in case. But she's supposed to just be staying in bed right now, not actually supposed to going anywhere. So let's get a show in quick. All right, let's get to the news. I'm literally holding myself back on something because tragic news yesterday, the passing of a very young singer, Liam Payne from One Direction. And I grew up in a household where we deal with tragedy through humor, usually very dark humor. And ever since I heard the report, I feel horrible for him. I feel horrible for the loved ones. It's sad, but I've got a joke in the back of my mind, and it's out, and I'm trying not to say it. So I'm a little thrown off by that, but we're going to move on. Hello, Lyle. Good to see you. So let's get to the news. We're just going to go right into the news, and we're going to address a internet rumor. And I've been seeing this for so long, and it irked me because there was no actual proof or no actual validation for this. And what it is that people online have been saying that DC is looking for a middle-aged man to play Batman. And that James Gunn and Peter Safran were going to get a middle-aged man. And the only thing James Gunn had ever said was he wanted somebody a little bit older than the Superman. So Batman was going to be a little older than the Superman. But what I think it is that the idea that there's going to be a Damian Wayne and that Damian will be 11, 12, 13 years old. So people seem to think, because of having a child, that he needs to be in his late 30s or early 40s. And I think that's because nowadays people have kids so much later in life on average. But that's not necessarily true, Batman could have been 20 years old at the time and be 31 and have an 11-year-old kid. Or 32. He doesn't have to. I mean, David Cornsweat's 31, so I think Superman's going to be 30 or 31. So Batman's only going to be like 32, 33, 34 in that range. So all these people that are doing these castings of, oh, it's going to be the guy from Supernatural, it's going to be this guy. They're all these much older 40, 45-year-old actors. And it's like, if you're building a new universe and want to do 10 years worth, why would you go for an older Batman? Well, Gunn finally came out and said, basically another internet scooper claimed that they were going to get an older Batman, and Gunn just responded, bull S. He went on to say, sometimes the rumor folks get information wrong. Other times they just make stuff up for clicks out of whole cloth. This is one of those times. So there's no truth to them going for a middle-aged Batman. And they've done it enough recently. Ben Affleck was older. If you watch Titans, they got Ian Glenn, or whatever his name is, from Game of Thrones to be Batman. Okay, let's go with a younger one. Lyle says, I'm too old for that role. I'm too old for any role at this point, but JD says, I guess it all depends on what age he was training with the league. Exactly. You know, and again, we don't know what this character's history going to be. If you guys have read Absolute Batman, the brand new comic that everybody's in love with, I liked it. I don't know about love, but it's a completely different origin story. So who knows what they're going to end up doing. But anyway, right now, there are only 2 films or any projects in pre-production. Superman's in post-production. Peacemaker is currently filming. Creature Commandos is ready to come out. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is in pre-production. They have a script. Lanterns is in pre-production. They're casting. There's no script. Not even a director for Brave and the Bold. So don't take these rumors as anything. Hey, Kenneth, good to see you. All right, let's move on. Universal Orlando's Resort said its highly anticipated 4th theme park, Universal Epic Universe, will officially open in May 22nd, 2025. Now, this is ending the speculation around the unveiling of kind of their most ambitious park, because it's going to feature 5 new worlds. They're going to have Celestial Park, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic, Super Nintendo World, How to Train Your Dragon, Isle of Berk, and Dark Universe. Now, anchoring the park is going to be a 500-room Universal Helios Grand Hotel with a dedicated entrance from the hotel into the park for guests that have the park admission. Now, this park has been in the work for years, but was delayed because of COVID. And we can tell it's been in the works for years because they're doing a Dark Universe area. Dark Universe didn't work. They put out one film, talked about maybe tying another one in, and they went, oh, no, that's bad. We're not doing it. And then nothing else from the Dark Universe. And there's going to be a Dark Universe section. So, yeah, it's been in the works for a while. All right, let's move on to, we're talking about David Cornsweat earlier and Superman. Well, it turns out he's getting his next role lined up. According to Deadline, he is in negotiations to star in an upcoming Skydance sports pick called Mr. Irrelevant. Now, it helps if you're a sports person to know about this, but the movie is about John Tuggle, who was given the title of Mr. Irrelevant after being the last pick of the last round of the 1983 NFL Draft, where he was taken by the New York Giants. And even though, you know, he spent a little time with the team, he had a lasting impression. It's a feel-good story. Now, the Mr. Irrelevant title has been given to the final pick in the NFL Draft since 1976. And most of the time, the person, they have a day, they celebrate, they're taken to Disneyland, stuff like that. And then they go into the NFL for a little time. Maybe they make it through training camp. Most of the time, these guys get cut 7th round picks. And back in the 70s, it was like much later picks. They did a lot more rounds. They tend not to make the teams. One of the few exceptions is the current starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy, who's even gone to the Super Bowl with the team. But yeah, he was a Mr. Irrelevant. So it's kind of on the upswing again because of Brock Purdy. So that's probably why they're moving forward with this team or with this movie now, because people are talking about Mr. Irrelevant again. Crypto the Superdog will be co-starring with David Corenswet in the upcoming James Gunn Superman movie. And it's going to be his first ever live action appearance. Now, this is coming because James Gunn owns a dog named Ozu. And he talked about Ozu in a recent media post when he talked about the upcoming film and Crypto. Gunn says, Crypto was inspired by our dog Ozu, who was adopted shortly after I started writing Superman. Ozu, who came from a hoarding situation in a backyard with 60 other dogs, never knew human beings, was problematic to say the least. He immediately came in and destroyed our home, our shoes, our furniture. He even ate my laptop. It took a long time before he would even let us touch him. Now, Gunn then remembered thinking, gosh, how difficult would life be if Ozu had superpowers? And thus Crypto, came into the script and changed the shape of the story as Ozu was changing my life. What better time to debut the not-so-good good boy Crypto than adopt a shelter dog, which was what the other day was. By the way, Ozu today is fairly often a very good boy. So life imitating art, whatever you want, Crypto may not be the super good dog that we're kind of used to from the comics, and maybe a bit of a handful for our new Superman. Moving over to Sony. Sony and Amazon MGM Studios have been working on a God of War series based off the popular PlayStation video game with the ancient mythology themed. The showrunners for it and executive producer Ralph Judkins, along with executive producers Hawk Ostby and Mark Fergus, have left the project. This is after they've already completed multiple scripts for the first season. Now, the studio is apparently looking to move in a different creative direction, though the trio scripts were praised by both Sony and Prime. The plan is to hire a whole new writer's room. Hey, Sony, I'm available. And that this remains an important asset to Prime to get this out. Now, what's interesting is Raphael Judkins, the showrunner, is still a major player for Amazon Prime. He's the showrunner of Wheel of Time, and he's also got an overall development deal with Sony. So obviously they're just kind of moving on from him on this particular project. There's been a lot of announcements for the upcoming Running Man movie from Paramount. And Glenn Powell, we know, is going to be playing the Arnold Schwarzenegger role, the main character of Ben Richards. Well, Josh Brolin is now in final negotiations to land the villain role in The Pick. And this is being directed by Edgar Wright. And of course, it's based on the Stephen King novel, which he wrote under the name Richard Bachman. Now, details of Brolin's role exactly is kind of being kept under wrap, but most people pretty much figure he's going to be the antagonist behind the violent reality show. Now, the film has also cast Carl Glusman, Katie O'Brien, and Daniel Ezra, and has a November 21st, 2025 release date. So they kind of got to get moving on it. Now, The Running Man, of course, was made famous in 1987 with the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that had Richard Dawson as the bad guy. Now, King's futuristic novel is a chase thriller set in a dystopian America in the year 2025. How ironic is that? The story centers on Ben Richards, a desperate man who participates in this violent reality show called The Running Man in order to win enough money to revive his gravely ill daughter. Now, that, who loves you and who do you love? Yes. Jay's here. By the way, Jay, I'm told you should stick around because I'm going to be talking about All-Star Superman, and I hear you really love that book. So, all right. Moving on. Dune fans, the Dune prequel series, Dune Prophecy, has finally gotten a release date. The first episode will release on HBO and stream on Max on Sunday, November 17th at 9 p.m. So basically, it's going to pop into the Penguin slot, I guess. The season is made up of 6 episodes and will release on Sundays. Like I said, the show is set more than 10,000 years before the events of Dune, of the movie that just came out. And follows the origin of the Bene Gesserit, the secretive order of powerful witches that influence the sci-fi world's politics behind the scenes. They're the movers and shakers, and Now, the official logline says, "From the expansive universe of Dune, created by acclaimed author Frank Herbert, and 10,000 years before the ascension of Paul Atreides, Dune Prophecy follows 2 Harkonian sisters as they combat forces that threaten the future of humankind and establish the fabled sect that will become known as the Bene Gesserit." And it's based on the novel Sisterhood of Dune, which was written by Brian Herbert, Frank's son, and Kevin J. Anderson. So, all right, guys, that is the news. When we come back, we're going to talk about All-Star Superman. Be right back.
Twitch, it's not just what happens when you have too many energy drinks anymore. Check out our content over there, too.
By this time in our journey, we had been on the trail of a very elusive creature for about 96 hours. But all the hard work is about to pay off. Oh, crikey, there she is. Oh, by the markings, I'd say this one's at least a 9.8. Oh, she's a real beauty. A true mint copy. Oh, this one will make a fine slab on anyone's display wall. Oh, she's a feisty one, though. Look out, look out!
Mint Hunter Comics is the place to find that mint comic you've been searching for. Mint Hunter Comics, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, part of the experience. Ask your local comic shop to add Battle Quest comics to your pull list today.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. All right, we're going to talk about All-Star Superman. By the way, Jay, if I start saying things that you're really not happy with, you can jump into the show and defend it. Just saying. You have that ability. All right, so I say defend it, but which pretty much kind of gives you the idea, but it's not that. I'm not going to say, hey, All-Star Superman sucks. Not going to say that. See, I remember picking up the books when they came out, both All-Star books. Frank Miller and Jim Lee on Batman and Robin, and Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely on Superman. And there was a lot of hype on these books. I remember them being the big thing for a bit. Oh, Rich Johnston over at Bleeding Cool was talking about them like he talks about the Absolute books now. And then they just kind of faded. And part of it was because the Miller and Lee run had a bunch of delays, and it really wasn't well received. The art was great, but the story was kind of, yeah. Morrison and Quitely's run, on the other hand, received a ton of praise and tends to lead most of the best of Superman story lists. I mean, even James Gunn has said it's one of the inspirations for his new take on Superman. And I remember reading it and thinking it was okay. I didn't love it. So, oh, wait, Jay says, it's not a bad story by any means, and I get Gunn is pulling hope elements out of it, but I prefer Superman Unchained or World Without Superman. Nice. Now, recently, DC started releasing those new compact comics. I did a whole section on them, and I bought a few because it was cool. And one of the ones I picked up was All-Star Superman, what the idea was I wanted to reread it, since, again, it was so loved, and Gunn's comments about it. I thought, maybe I missed something. Maybe I was in the wrong headspace when I read it. It was time to give it another chance. I also learned that Morrison had written the series shortly after the passing of his own father, and that it influenced his approach to the character. It was kind of a study of mortality with one of the most powerful characters in comics. Now, many people call this a masterpiece. One of the greatest Superman stories of all time. I mean, you go online and that's what people are saying. And it's also the example of something that I've noticed, that most of the top Superman stories out there, whenever you see a list like that, or when you ask somebody their favorite Superman story, they're stories that exist outside of continuity. Just ask some of their lists. They're going to say stuff like All-Star Superman, or Superman Red Sun, Earth One, or ones like World Without Superman, or Superman Unchained. I know was in continuity, I believe. That was the Jim Lee one, and I remember actually reading it recently. No, these are the Man of Steels. This was a good run too, the Bendis Reese one. But the point I'm getting at is, before we dive into the story, I have to be upfront. I was probably biased against the series in the first place. I am not really a fan of Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. I'm in no way trying to say they aren't talented, nor do I question people who love them. But Morrison's work tends to be, I don't know, a little out there, a little psychedelic, a little just slightly off kilter. Stuff like Flex Mentalo and Doom Patrol being able to flex to cause powers and stuff, or even something as simple as in this series, Dr. Quintum and his psychedelic coat. It's like, why does he have a psychedelic coat? Why does he look like he's Doctor Who? It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I like my stories kind of grounded. I like as much realism to offset the fantasy. It's the way I write. It's what I like to read. And Quitely's art, I don't know, it's not bad. It just, when he draws characters, they don't feel like the characters I'm used to. Everybody's a bit fluffier, more rounded. I wasn't a fan of their X-Men run either, the Cat Beast version and stuff like that. So I'm just not that big a fan of them. And again, it's not personal. So I wanted to read this and putting my personal likes aside because a good story is still a good story. What we ended up with was a 12-issue series that feels like a love letter to Superman comics of the 60s and 70s. This feels like it's a pre-crisis love letter. We find out Superman is dying, and then we go right into what is basically a Lois Lane story. Or, that used to be the type of story they would do in the Lois Lane comics. She gets powers for 24 hours and she's being fought over by, was it Atlas and Gilgamesh, or, two mythical characters who don't pop up regularly in the series, but suddenly they're there. And it's all this, like I said, love letter to Lois Lane comics. We get an episode of Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen comics from that era, with Jimmy taking over Project when Dr. Quintum goes away for a day, and he has to save Superman and all this other stuff. Again, just like those comics. And it kind of continued on from there. We focus on one of the smartest men in the world, Lex Luthor, not seeing that the bumbling oaf in front of him, who happens to be a good reporter, is just way overdoing it to protect his identity. Morrison writes Clark so clumsy and awkward that it's kind of painful to watch. Then we get another story about a long-lost heroes of Krypton showing up to help humanity by replacing them. Overall, each and every plot line in the comics feels like it came out of the pre-crisis comic era. And it's probably exactly what Morrison was going for. And overall, the story is a bit all over the place with a loose adherence to the main plot, which is Superman's dying. But I don't know, it didn't work for me. Jay says, Frank Quietly is super talented, but his art, especially in this book, just isn't for me. Okay. So I'm not the only one. I like Jim Lee art. I like Ivan Rice. I like Mark Silvestri. I like a little more realism too. I guess realism may not be the right term, but Frank Quietly just doesn't click for me on some of these stuff. Now, I've read stuff that's original and had no problem with it, but when they're working on character, other companies' characters, it just doesn't feel right to me. Now, the era of Superman that Morrison seems to be paying homage to is an era where Campy was in. Lois and Jimmy were used like sitcom characters, and Superman would suddenly gain a new power to wrap up a storyline without any real explanation of how he got the power, and then it would never be used again. And that happens here too. He gets extra powers. And if you love that era of Superman, then I can totally see why you'd love this series. And Quietly's art kind of fits in the work from that era, the Wayne Boring, and his last name really is Boring. Not that I said his work was boring, but Wayne Boring and that era of Superman art. I like my Superman stories more focused on humanity and how, even with great power, he chooses to do what's right. I like Superman stories that put him in situations that he has to use his head and his heart more than his muscles. Stories like Birthright, Superman for All Seasons, The Death of Superman, For Tomorrow. Yeah, I know that one gets panned a little more than most, but I liked that story. Superman stories where his true strength comes from not being born on Krypton, from being raised in Kansas. Now, All-Star Superman is a great homage to that Silver Age pre-crisis Superman family of comics. And I also look at like the Batman stuff from that era too. It's different than what we read now. It's different than modern day interpretations of these characters. And they're not what, I didn't read those books when I was a kid. I read Marvel. I didn't start liking the DC stuff until post-crisis. I had them. My grandparents used to get me a bunch of old comics, and I would look through them and I'd read, but they weren't the ones that got me excited. DC started getting me excited when John Byrne took on Superman after Crisis. And, those books started coming out. Dark Knight, stuff like that. Now, I don't need gritty, over-the-top dark, but I also don't want campy. I don't want just light-hearted takes on the stuff. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on All-Star Superman. And it makes me a little worried about the upcoming Superman movie. Now, I know it's supposed to be lighter. We had Man of Steel, and Man of Steel was much darker. And we're not going to get that. We're going to get a lighter one. But I don't want it to go too light. I don't want the campy. That's even part of what I didn't like about the Christopher Reeve Superman stuff. Now, Christopher Reeves was a great Superman. Overall, it's a great movie. But the way he played Clark was so oafish that it was hard to watch. So I'm hoping we don't end up going down that path again. So, Al, did I have any other notes on that? Yeah, I'm all for hope, and I'm all for Krypton and stuff like that. I just don't want it to get too silly. So, and some of the stuff in All-Star Superman just felt silly to me. It felt like the 60s and 70s Superman comics. And again, if that's what Morrison was going for, he nailed it. Just saying. All right. You guys, if you have different thoughts on it, if you've read All-Star Superman, go ahead, throw it up in the chat. Tell me about your thoughts on it. I'm happy to hear, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. If you guys think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, tell me about it. I do want to mention that I did, like I said, picked up Absolute Batman and read it. And I kind of had my mind changed on it. If you haven't checked out the Absolute books, and there's Absolute Superman and Absolute Wonder Woman, and these books are selling out like crazy, and people are talking about them, are really, really excited about these books. And it wasn't clicking for me. And it wasn't because the story was bad. It's that they were telling a different origin of Batman. He wasn't rich. He wasn't, both his parents weren't killed. One was killed. I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but he's a very different Batman. You can find copies. There are some people that I bought mine literally on eBay at cover price just a week ago. So there's still some out there. And there's a second printing, a third printing. There's going to be a fourth printing. So I didn't dislike the story, but it is a very different take on it. He wasn't raised by Alfred. He was raised by Martha. Alfred doesn't even come into his life until this point in the series. And there's a lot of different connections to some of the other characters. And I remember reading it thinking, what's this for? What's the point of this? Is this an Elseworld? It doesn't say Elseworld. So what is this? Oh, hey, cool. Good to see you. And that was the feeling I had coming out of it because, again, I didn't know what its purpose was. And then I watched Nerdist. Nerdist reviewed it. And I thought, well, let me see what they think about it. And the guy on Nerdist said one thing that suddenly made it click. He said that the Absolute line, and it's a line, is DC's version of the Ultimate Universe. when Marvel came out with Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Avengers, the Ultimates, I think they call that one, and Ultimate X-Men. And then it made sense to me. What if we just rebooted everything on its own on the side? So it doesn't say Elseworld, but it is an Elseworld in a sense. This is a whole new universe where we're going to get different versions. It's not going to be the same old, same old. It's going to be a different spin on these characters. And besides Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman, they also have the Flash in the works and Green Lantern. And I'm like, okay, now it makes sense to me. Now I can look at this in its context, that it's going to be its own thing. And with it being its own thing, then I don't have to kind of go, well, how does this fit? Where does it go? And if they had put the Elseworld logo on there, that wouldn't have been a problem. But because it didn't have it, I was confused. Could you liken it to What If and the Ultimate Universe? The thing with What If is What If takes a single moment and changes it. This is much more drastic of a change. For example, what if Martha Kent survived the shooting in the crime alley? That would be a what if thing. What if Bruce Wayne was raised by Martha instead of, losing both his parents? Or if Thomas had lived and Martha had died? That made sense. That would be a what if to me. This is much more like the Ultimates, which is a completely different take. Yes, we get a Batman. Yes, it's Bruce Wayne. Yes, Alfred Pennyworth is involved. Nothing else is the same. Okay, yeah, I could see that. That Elseworlds is What If and Absolute is Ultimate. Yeah, I'll give you that. So this is definitely their Ultimates universe. And in doing so, now I'm kind of want to see where this goes. Because I remember liking the Ultimate Universe a lot. And it was neat to see these characters without a ton of continuity baggage and a chance to reintroduce these characters. I mean, there's a moment in the Ultimate Batman where he's talking to Killer Croc, who's not Killer Croc at this point, Waylon. And there's a reference to their other friends they hang around with. And it appears to be Selina, Edward Nygma, Oswald, and Harvey. That they're all high school friends or college friends. And that changes everything. And Batman grew up in Crime Alley, not, the incident happens in Crime Alley. It's like, what if Batman wasn't rich? And that's kind of where this goes. So, but there's so many tweaks that it's not just a what if. Hey, Slipknot. So yeah, with that in context, I like it. I like what I read. I don't know if I love it, but I like it, and I'm curious to see where it goes. And I'm curious enough that I'm getting all Absolute Superman and Absolute Wonder Woman to see what all these takes are going to be like, because these are big name writers: Scott Snyder, Jason Aaron, and Kelly Thompson. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all goes. So, all right. Let's move on to, let's go ahead. We'll take our second break. When we come back, we'll talk the Penguin and we will talk Agatha All Along. Be right back.
Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.
Symphonic verses, Nocturne's romance. A song of romanticized darkness, dreaming death by sleep.
So, the show is called The Geek Chat. And really, there's just a couple of geeks.
I'm Rich.
I'm Dez.
And we are your hosts for this weekly guide into comic bookery and all the geeky stuff that goes with it.
And that pretty much says it all. They talk about the latest movies and shows.
Okay, I'll be completely honest with you. Overall, D+ movie.
So the end. Did you know who that is?
That's She-Ra, yeah.
Yes.
The new #1 comics of the week.
We rep Samuel Jackson and we rep Mace Windu.
I passed on this. I was like...
No regrets.
No regrets. I really wanted to like this book. I really did. Like, I really did.
And just chat with each other. And with you.
Oh, Daniel says, I dosed off with the first one. I have zero interest in the Joker Harley ship, not Harley herself. Enjoy, not for me. Yeah, this movie's gonna be rough for me to sit through, I'll be honest.
The Geek Chat, Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Just a couple of honest geeks.
Let's be honest. Come on.
And that is why people watch us, because we're honest.
Giving their honest opinions.
And the thing you always have to remember about the internet is everyone has an opinion, and they all suck.
Part of the experience.
Hey, everybody, remember to stick around. We've got What's in the Box, Geek Chat, and Sketch Up tonight, but no Geek Chat. See, they screw me up like that. The geeks are in New York, so they won't be on this week or next week. But Jen will be doing What's in the Box, and, of course, we've got Sketch Up tonight. We're actually going to get Ink and Drink crew from Long Beach will be on Sketch Up tonight. So you want to stick around for that. I'm mixed on Scott Snyder. Court of Owls to me felt a little forced. It's a good story, but I felt like it was forced into continuity. But did like Superman Unchained. Overall, Scott's really good. Yeah. Spam, 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 Geek Chat, and spam, chat, Geek Chat's off. All right. Let's talk about Agatha first, because that's the one that Triple B specifically wanted to talk about. Between the last two episodes have been super short. I mean, they literally could have made them one episode. I don't think anybody would have noticed. We got Agatha's trial last episode, and, then we got the reveal at the end that she knows who Teen is, tells him, "You're just like your mother." We all kind of went, oh my God, we know now who it is. We watched this last night, so I don't have to watch on mute. Cool. There's going to be some spoilers, so. But even if you hadn't watched last night, Marvel blew it. Marvel came out after the "You're Just Like Your Mother" and put out things saying that, oh, it's Billy Maximoff. It's Billy. It's Wiccan. It's like, okay, we get it. So this last night's episode, while super short, was fantastic. And that's because it kind of went back from the end of WandaVision, just before the end of WandaVision, up through the beginning of Agatha All Along. So we got to see what happened. We got to meet William Kaplan, a young Jewish boy at his bat mitzvah, and his loving parents, and he got his palm read by Lila Calderon, who he would meet later, and we find out that it's actually Lila who put the sigil on him. But I don't think she knows she didn't know she was doing it. I think it was one of those mental things she gets. But also because the sigil went on him, she doesn't remember having met him. Now, yeah, the Funko spoiled it too, right? We were trying not to use that as a spoiler, trying to let it go. And sometimes Funko Pops have been wrong, by the way. Don't always take that as total gospel. But it was neat to see William beforehand, the accident that's caused by the hex dropping and growing and dropping. It caused a distractive driver. I've heard some people say that we're going to probably find out that there was somebody in the truck specifically. I don't know. But what happens is there's an accident. William is killed. And it's that point that Billy, nice that the name thing worked out, jumped into the now departed body and took over. And I've heard some people speculate that, he had amnesia because of the accident stuff, but it's also possible he had amnesia because of the sigil that was put on him. So that's why he didn't know that he was Billy Maximoff. Yeah, Catherine Hahn is awesome in Agatha. I really got to like this kid. I don't know if I was actually liking him before this, but I really started to like him by watching this. I like that he's got his relationship with his boyfriend. I like that he went to go meet a conspiracy nut, and it turned out to be Ralph Boner from WandaVision. That Evan Peters came back to play the character again. I think that was awesome. And as soon as I saw him, the back of him, I went, I know who that is. That was cool. Hearing his point of view of what happened in the Hex was interesting because you go, yeah, that all sounds crazy, but it's what happened. And then to see Billy basically go to find Agatha and to see his side of what happened between the two of them, when we saw Agatha's side from being in the spell to him kind of placating her at some points, and he didn't see Rio, things like that. So I thought that was really clever. I don't know about him not being able to access his powers. Maybe he just needs training. I don't know, but yeah, it was overall, I really liked the episode. We got 3 left? There's 9 total. And I believe what's going to happen is we're going to get 7 next week. And I think we get 8 and 9 together. So we'll be wrapping this up in the next 2 weeks. I don't believe that Lila and Jennifer are dead. We've seen them in trailers. I think Alice will end up coming back as well. I noticed that Rio just kind of disappeared at the end of last episode and all of this episode. So I think we'll end up back on the trail, and we've still got the Salem 7 to deal with. So it'll be interesting to see how this wraps up. JD says, I thought he ended up as some amalgamation of William and Billy. Maybe. I do love the fact that we get the big realization of why he wants to go through the Witch's Road, and in the most Agatha way possible, she nails it by going, you're looking for Tommy. That's what I said. So, what about Sharon? Sharon Davis, Mrs. Hart. yeah, I get the. I have a feeling we're going to get them all back. How we're going to get them back, I don't know. But maybe that's what Agatha's going to ask for at the end. Is to have her coven back. I don't know. Maybe that'll be her redemption arc. We'll see. But yeah, I don't think we're going to end up with a bunch of dead people. Maybe Sharon's still dead, but I'm pretty sure we'll get the other ones back. All right, let's move on to the Penguin. We got a few more minutes left. Wow. Every time I think this show has topped itself, we get an episode like this where we don't even see Oswald in this. We get him in the very beginning and that's it. This is Sophia's episode. And oh my God, just what she went through, why she went through it was just so powerful. And then to see how she's changed by it. Hey, this is what 10 years in Arkham Asylum is going to do to you. And the way she handled the situation at the end, I thought was pretty spectacular. You're waiting to binge it. I normally love binging series. I don't think this is one you should binge because there is so much happening in each episode that taking that time in between enhances it. And I don't say this about a lot of shows. There's a lot of shows that I think really should be binge watched. And I think, because you'll pick it apart to death, or you'll get wild speculation or whatever. This is not that. This, you need a day or two to kind of let it soak in, to kind of process everything that happens in this show. It is way over the top most of the time. It is really intense. And it never does what you think they're going to do. Leftover says, it's like an old HBO Sunday night weekly watch. Exactly. This is The Sopranos and True Detective. And yeah, it is. This one, you need to let the episodes breathe a little bit. Because I think if you just slam right into the next one, you're going to lose what is that extra something this series has. So, Jay, I would literally tell you, just take the first one and watch it. And then give yourself a day or two, because it really does enhance it when you have that sit back and go, what on earth are they going to do next? I know that at the end of each episode, I've just sat there shaking my head, realizing how much the series has just changed at the end of each episode, and how it's never quite the way you think it's going to end. It's always so much more complicated, and nothing ever ends with, oh, okay, that worked out. It's usually, wow, it's going to hit the fan again. Now, they just put out today a mid-seasons trailer to kind of give you an idea of what's going to happen going forward. And we're going to get, the main thing this series is going to answer is the question we didn't know we needed answered. Going into this, coming out of the Batman, we knew that Gotham was flooded and everything was going to change. But also we had the death of Carmine Falcone. So going into the Batman 2, what is it going to be like? What is the criminal underworld going to be like going into the Batman 2? And if they didn't do this series, we really wouldn't get a chance to understand it going in. They would have to take the time to go, oh, well, Maroni moved back into power. You'd have this big exposition dump, or we'd have to spend the time explaining it, which was the original plan. We were going to get this kind of stuff in the beginning of the movie. Now they can just focus on the Batman again because we have this series that's going to tell us what the underworld is like, what is the criminal element like in Gotham when the next movie starts. Will Bliss be the new drug? Will Drop still be around? Will it be the Falcones with Sophia in charge? Will it be the Maronis? Will it be Penguin? That's what we're going to learn in this series. And that's going to help us a lot going in to the next Batman movie. So that's what we're going to learn. And that's what that trailer tells us, that it's going to get more and more intense, that there is an absolute war happening. Sophia wants Oz to not only dead, but wants him to suffer. And Oz has weak spots. He's got his mom. He's got Victor. He's got Eva Carlo. So he's got weak spots. And he's tried to hide his mom, but I don't know how good at hiding that's going to be. So this is going to be one of those series that each week it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's a song, The Whole World's Sitting on a Ticking Bomb. That's what this is. So, all right, going to have to wrap it up. But real quick on Slipknot, what are your thoughts on Halloween 1978? If you're me, I'm slipping on the date. If you mean the actual Loomis and Jamie Lee Curtis, John Carpenter film, it's one of the last horror movies I really liked. I really appreciated it, the way it was filmed, the way it was made. Donald Pleasance. By the way, there is a new movie in the works. I just saw that the script has been approved for a Loomis movie. They're going to do a movie focusing on Donald Pleasance's character. Of course, they're going to recast. It's probably going to be a younger version, but it's based on the character from Halloween. So, first date I ever went on with my first wife, my ex-wife, was to Halloween 4. That was my introduction. Then we went back and watched Halloween 1. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for what Carpenter did with Halloween, that he wanted it to be an anthology series and that it just got too popular for it. So overall, I think it's a great movie. And I think at this point where we should just let it alone. If they want to do some of the Loomis, great. But other than that, nah, we're good. So Triple B says, no, there isn't. There isn't a Loomis movie in the works? Because I'm pretty sure the writer just showed the script and said that it was moving forward. Yeah, Dan, I saw it on X or Twitter that he had the script for Loomis. So, and it says based on the characters by John Carpenter and his wife. So, Sandy, she has a different name, but I heard it was a Loomis series. Okay, then it might be a series. I know Loomis is in the works, whether it's a series or a movie, that I'm not sure. All right, guys, I got to wrap it up there. We are at our time. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you all next week. Have a great week, and catch you soon. Good night, everybody.
We know you probably get a lot of emails, but could you please make sure to sign up for our mailing list? We don't send a lot of emails, and we try not to bother you. We just want to give you the best information about all the cool stuff that's going on around here. Sign up on our website, theexplive.com.